what we're looking to do is just kind of get an idea of what our health looks like, what is getting us sick, what's keeping us sick, and how we stay in this cycle of medication and eating this food that we never quite feel good. We don't feel like we're dying, but just something is not right. Right? So what we're doing here is I gotta say this, is in no way for you to go home and throw out all your medicine and give your doctor the finger and say, I'm trying what Chris told me. I'm not giving you medical advice on what it is I think you should be doing with yourself. That's between you and your doctor. Nor am I telling you what you need to eat and how you need to eat it. What we're doing here is we're doing something that's educational and suggestive, right? Evolution will tell us what foods we should be eating and what we shouldn't. The chemists and the big food companies probably shouldn't be the ones dictating what we do, what we eat, right? So with that, how many of you in here understand how your metabolism actually works?
Yes.
Like it does two things. It only does two things, your metabolism. How many of you think that you may have a slow metabolism that just doesn't work too good? We got a slow one. We got lots of slow ones. All right, how many of you, and you don't have to raise your hands for this up, you know what? How many of you on medications that you're actually not really sure exactly what they're doing? Why you're on it? Why you need to be on it for as long as you are? You know, if there's sometimes we get into this medical system of medications and they never seem to stop, right? And we're going to kind of get into a little bit of how and why that happens. How many have tried gyms and diets and just none of them have worked? You go to the gym, you work out, you go home, and you're just as big as you were before. You feel just as crappy as you did before, and nothing seems to work from it. That's just about everybody, right? That's pretty much how we all get to where we are. How many of you think if I just look at a donut, I gain 2 pounds, right? That's a lot of us. So the problem that we have is twofold, right? So it's the food and how we're eating it and how we can't stop. So to understand sickness, like what is health? The Oxford Dictionary defines health as soundness of body and mind with the absence of illness or disease. And that's a pretty cool definition, right? Soundness of mind and body. Well, the problem is soundness is subjective. What may sound right to you may not be sound to me, right? So what is soundness? We can't really define soundness. So what we want to do is we want to be able to make health a measurable metric, something that we can measure. We can see on the graph and we can see where our health is here, where it's here, and then we can start to plot why we are where we are. But we have to be able to understand what it is we're going through. So in order to understand our health, to define our metabolism is pretty simple. It does two things. Your metabolism produces energy, and it does all the growth and repair. All of that comes from the nutrients that, right? 3 macronutrients. We got fat, protein, carbohydrates. Fats break down into fatty acids, proteins into amino acids, carbs into glucose. And glucose is a very wide range. It's a very, very wide range. The anabolic side of your metabolism is what makes everything grow. As you sit here, everything you can touch, see, think, feel, it's all part of protein that has gone into your body since infancy and developed you into what you are. Without the anabolic side of our metabolism, we just like a blob of milk. Can't be. The catabolic side is what produces the energy for the anabolic side to work. So in order for me to grow muscle, energy has to happen. Can't not. And that happens, and that comes in the form of what is called ATP. We have between 20 and 50 trillion cells in our body. I can't even wrap my head around. Every single one of those cells takes in a nutrient from the body and has to convert it into ATP. ATP is that energy that makes you think, your digestion work, you move your arm. I flex my bicep, This is happening continuously, zillions of times a day, all over your body. If you don't have ATP, you have passed away and we're going to your funeral. So when we understand that half of what we're eating is the substrates that make up what we are, and the other half is creating the energy to do that, gives us a little bit more of an understanding of how this is going to work, right? So when these systems work together in perfect symmetry, what do you imagine we have? Imagine we're pretty healthy, right? If the balance is pretty good, right? We're probably pretty healthy. But if the balance is way off, we're probably going to be sick, right? It's probably where we're going to end up. And if we look at little baby Everett that comes in here, right? Little grandbaby. That kid sits in here in an arm and drinks out of the bottle. That baby lives on nothing but milk and protein from its mom. Fat and protein. That's all that baby has. There's no carbohydrate. There's no sugar. There's no Sour Patch Kid. There's no Go-Gurt. There's no sports drink. That baby has now doubled its size, but it's done it half. High fat, moderate protein diet with no carbs. So the energy that the kid has comes from all of that fat that is in that mom's milk. Like nature knew this. Nature knew this ahead of time and provided everything we needed. The template for us to survive was created by nature. We have kind of jacked that all up. So the kid's doubled its weight, and that's due to all the protein and everything that's in that milk, and the energy comes from the fat. His brain is developing. You see his eyes moving around. You see his hands feeling. You see everything just works. And it will continue to work until what? Until we disrupt it with the things that we think we know about food because of what we're told by the companies that sell us food. All right, if we think that any company just wants to sell food and helping sell us just a little, no. That food has been designed and around it being hyper palatable, calorically dense, and you don't even know you're eating it. Your body can't recognize it. We have outpaced biology with our diets. So when we look at just basic nutrients coming into the body, and I want to keep this kind of brief because the biology is pretty intense, but if any of you want to dive deeper into the biology of this, I'll do a separate one of these where we kind of get all nerdy with it. But nutrients come into our body, and when we ingest, say, glucose, our body what does body release when there's glucose in the blood? Insulin. And under normal homeostasis, which means just natural, basic, chilling out living, not exercise, not running, just kind of doing the thing, my body should be burning fat. I should be in fat burning mode. Like right now, as you all sit there, chilled out, just kind of watching, your brains are going, you do a little bit of writing, your bodies should be in a fat burning mode. But they can't be. The food that we eat has so much glucose in it that we don't even know that we're constantly running on sugar. So the body's going to run on sugar if that's what it has. And for us, it's in everything we have. So we eat foods. Our glucose will go into some of our muscles. It'll go into our liver. And then once your liver and your muscles are full, where can it go? Like where does it go? You know what? You're kind of right. Nancy's kind of pointing to here. She's like, it goes right here. It does. It spills out. It's energy the body cannot use. It is like you're filling up your gas tank and your gas tank is full and you just keep the thing in there. It just keeps flowing out. Where's the gas going to go? It's going to go all over the road. It's going to go all over the floor. It can only take so much fuel. And if you're not burning any fuel on top of that, it compounds the problem. So if I look at this and I say, this is a good example. Say Shane and I, in 1978, went to a Chevy dealer. We both bought brand new Corvette Stingrays. And we drive them off the lot. If you know anything about Shane takes care of his stuff. If you know anything about me, I'll drive with my check engine light for like 3 years before I do anything. So like 46 years later, Shane and I meet on Facebook and we decide we're going to meet someplace. So we're going to have a cup of coffee. And Shane's sitting there waiting, and Shane hears in the back of it, it is beat up jalopy chugging down the road. And I pull in, and my Corvette looks like crap. It backfires. Tires are bald. It's creaky. Doesn't ship right. Steering's off. And I give Shane a hug and everything's good. And I tell him that it's unfair that he got the good car. I got the crap car. And he says, no, we got the same car. I took care of mine. Year after year. I put the right fuel in it. I changed my oil. I paid attention to my car. You didn't. And then I end up super sick 46 years later, jealous of what he has. But the truth of the matter is we started in the same spot. We just went in two different directions. No different with our bodies. Right? We all start in the same spot. If we end up where we are this sick, we have to look at something that we are not doing. Right? It has to fall on us on some level. So when we look at foods, we say, okay, we as humans, we've been around for 12 million years. 12,000 years ago, they discovered that we started to have agriculture. We've started to grow our own plants and have our own livestock. And that worked great for about 12,000 years. And about 200 years ago, we started to process food. We got smart. Americans got real smart real fast. And companies like the Kellogg's company learned how to process grains and strip them down and stretch them out for a long time. And then they convinced us that should be on the bottom of the food pyramid, right? So somewhere along nature, the 12 million years of nature and evolution was convinced by grain companies that 12 million years was wrong and that they were right. So they flipped the food pyramid upside down. The food pyramid I grew up with had bread on the bottom. You ate bread. That was the main part of your diet, was the grain. And as that processed food has progressed, it has progressed, again, highly palatable, completely refined. But when they refine it, they do something pretty intelligent. They give it a good name. If something says enriched, right? I mean, like, who wouldn't want to have something that's enriched? I love Melissa. If Melissa was a little more enriched, I'd probably love her a little more. But that's not how this actually works. When you buy your bowl of cereal, or your box of cereal, and this says that it is fortified. I mean, fortified means, damn, like they got some stuff in there that's good for me, right? They're going to fortify me. It's going to be heart healthy because it says it on the box. Fortified with vitamins and minerals. It is all very misleading. And we can't kind of get away from that. So if we know that we eat for the two reasons of energy and growth and repair, and we're feeding ourselves food that are contradictory to that, what's going to inevitably happen? We're going to end up being sick. And as we start getting sick, we look at things, we say, okay, what looks better? Nancy, I'm going to ask you, a donut or a carrot? Right. I can eat my weight in donuts. Yeah. Right? I see a donut and I already want to eat it before I've even eaten it. Like, I can already taste it. I can feel it. Like it's almost like it's romanticized, right? And it really is. And that's craziness. That romancing is no different than the heroin addict doing heroin or the drunk drinking. That romanticizing, it is the same thing, right? We get into that in a little bit. So if we take a food, because this is where we get into like some seed oil stuff and stuff like that. Because you maybe heard that like seed oils are not good for you. What happens is this: regular fat in your body, which is your saturated fat or fat from animals, because we are carnivores mostly, right? I mean, so there are climates that you live in where you don't get fruit and vegetables. You don't get them way up north, unless you grow a certain amount of them. They're very seasonal. But animals, you kind of had all the way around, right? So it would give you your protein, it would give you your fat. So if I take a bowl of mashed potatoes and I cook them up with a lot of butter, Melissa will tell you, I use a lot of butter. And I sit them there in a bowl. And then I put a big bowl of Lay's potato chips right next to them. If you eat some mashed potatoes and walk away for a little bit. You eat a couple potato chips and walk away for a little bit. You walk through that same room. Are you going to grab a spoonful of mashed potatoes, or are you going to grab potato chip? If you tell me that you're going to eat mashed potatoes, you just lied to yourself inside your own head. Like a voice inside that says, I'm eating mashed potatoes isn't telling you the truth. We are all grabbing the chip. And now, since we know we're not going to eat those mashed potatoes, that is about a cup and a half or whatever, because we've already eaten some. What's happened is, yes, the potato has a high glycemic index, right? The glucose chain is long in a potato, but the fat slows down that digestion. It slows down the release of that glucose into the blood. And anytime we can control how fast sugar gets into our blood, we're controlling our insulin. Because once it's in there, insulin got to get it out. Lots of things happen. It's going into the liver, it's going into the muscles. There's just shit happening everywhere. But it's madness, and it never stops. But that potato chip, we can eat that entire bowl of potato chips and never feel full. Has anyone here ever gotten full from a bag of Doritos? Truthfully, there's no way you can. What happens is this. The seed oil is also what's referred to as linoleic acid. Okay, it is the linoleic acid in the polyunsaturated fat of seed oils cannot be broken down biologically and chemically the same way as saturated fat does. It just can't. And what happens is as it gets into your cells, because every nutrient goes into a cell, there's nowhere else for it to go. It goes in there and it tries to figure out how it's going to create power to move the body. When this fatty acid gets in there, it actually clings on to electrons that are trying to move down a chain to create power to respirate the cell. Because every cell, every time you breathe out and every time you breathe in, you are burning something in every cell in your body. The oxygen is met, carbon dioxide is released. That is what we exhale. We inhale oxygen. The whole process starts. Never stops. It never rests. So when we eat these seed oils, it actually stymies the ability for a cell to create energy. It jacks it all up. It hijacks the whole signal of it. And what happens from there is that you may have heard of things like called free radicals, right? Free radical is when it's the exhaust in your cell when you create energy, just like your car. Piston fires, exhaust goes out. Has to be an exhaust when we create energy, just the way it works. And if you have a reactive oxygen species, which is the exhaust, then that means you have power, and they should be balanced. When we throw off that imbalance because we put something in there that cannot be processed, that builds up, it opens up the door to the cell, it says something's going on here, we can't produce power, put in more nutrients, and then the cells, what happens to them? They get bigger and bigger. But worse than that, it is sending a signal directly up to the brain that it needs food. So this very thing that we're eating is hijacking the system that tells us we just ate. So how does that possibly end? Well, it ends with the empty bag of chips, and every one of us has gone like this in the bottom of the bag and ate the rest of the chip dust in the bottom of there. Who hasn't done that? And all of this is done intentionally. Right? So it's something that is referred to as the bliss point. And this concept came up in the early 70s by a chief chemist, I believe it was at Pillsbury. He figured if you could find this sweet spot for people where something wasn't too bland, but it wasn't too rich, we could get them to consume it indefinitely. It'll flatline them in their brain. It will put them in a spot where they simply won't even know they're eating. And this is done in a few clever ways. They use a technique that's referred to as the vanishing calorie technique. And this one's awesome. You're all going to identify with this. You all eat a Cheeto. It dissolves in your mouth before it gets to your belly. It's gone. The more of them we eat, the more that shit we're ingesting, right? And that is so super highly refined with maltodextrin. The amount of stuff, there's nothing in a Cheeto that is redeemable for you, I promise you. But if it's dissolving in your mouth, what's it not telling your belly? It's not telling your belly there's any food in there. So we suck down massive calories of Cheetos, cotton candy. I'm not looking directly at you, but I'm looking towards you. She loves cotton candy. Popcorn, right? These savory treats that we put in and they're gone before they even get down to our belly. That is strategic. That is chemists in a room trying to figure out how they're going to get you to buy Cheetos. They don't care if the Cheeto is good for you. They care that you purchase it. So when you're a food company, a few things matter, right? Participation by the public. How many people are buying it? Shelf stability. The longer you can have something sitting on a shelf, the less chance you have of a shortage, right? You don't have to take it and return it. So, and then what happens is the food that they're used, they attack the sensory of satiety, right? Which is fullness. And it is a direct attack. So you don't know you're ever full. The seed oils are hijacking you on a cellular level, sending a signal to the brain that you're full, and your belly never feels full. Back to the mashed potatoes. You eat a cup of mashed potatoes, what does your belly feel like? Your belly feels full. It feels the sensation of fullness, and it stops the leptin going up to the brain, and then all of a sudden, you're pretty good. Fat slows down the digestion, and you're able to wait a couple hours before you may start feeling hungry again. But if you're eating these Doritos or you're drinking a pop, you have a very short amount of time before what has to happen. You start to feel hungry again. You've eaten nothing. Although you've been grazing all day, you've eaten no food. And when what happens is the more of this stuff that we eat, the more pop that we drink, the more of these chips that we eat, pies, or whatever it is, pasta like Olive Garden. We don't want the never-ending bowl of pasta. We overstimulate the dopamine in our brain. And once anything becomes overstimulated, it becomes downregulated. Right? So the brain, and we were talking about this earlier, as soon as my lovely wife goes to get her Dr. Pepper and she's down to like one little tiny one a day, her brain is already excited before the straw hits her mouth. Like she already knows that good feeling she's about to have, which only lasts for a split second. But as we start to overstimulate dopamine receptors, the only way to stimulate the dopamine is to what? What has to happen? You have to consume more. And I will tell you, as a practicing recovering alcoholic for 32 years, that's exactly how it works. With anything, whether it's sex, gambling, doesn't matter. The drug is the drug. The dopamine effect is the same. So we eat all this stuff and the dopamine shuts down, so it no longer feels good. It takes more to feel good. And then we have to eating more. And the more of this we eat and we consume, what are we guaranteeing that we have going on in our system? We have a constant sugar drip and a constant supply of insulin. And insulin becomes what our true problem here actually is. It connects to everything. So we don't look at food as bad as something like alcohol because, we don't turn into a-holes and get DWIs when we eat snacks. Although we probably get real moody when we eat one, right? And I know for myself personally, I would get uncomfortably irritable when I got hungry. And Melissa will probably back it. Like, believe the word, I'm nasty. I've removed all of the processed stuff out of my world. All the seed oils, all the flowers, I've literally removed everything. And those mood swings, they're not there. I'm just typically nasty the way my mother made me. But I've thought no additional nasty, right? I don't need to. Just now, my jerkiness now is just, that's genetic. And that was, yeah. So that's what happens, right? And so this addiction to sugar, and as someone who smoked for 27 years and drank away a good portion of his life, I will tell you that this sugar is harder to kick than anything else. It is subtle. It is everywhere. It is in everything. Our culture, we applaud it. We encourage it. We do parties. Everything we do evolves around food. We see a kid, we give them a snack. We'll get into what we're doing to kids because like that's something we should probably take a look at. But as we get into all that and understand this, then we start to understand what some of this sickness is. So in 1989, a doctor came out with something he referred to as the deadly quartet. Deadly quartet is upper body obesity. This equals ectopic fat and visceral fat. So if it's a guy or a woman, if you look down and you can't see your toes and your belly's distended out like this, you don't have magic abs that go like that. That's not how the abs work. Like the abs work like this. They should be flat. And if you go like, touch my abs, I'm like rock solid, you're not. What's happened is your liver has processed so much fat, it doesn't know what to do with it. You don't have this fat storage that maybe somebody else has. Somebody else has more storage where they can have subcutaneous fat, but some people, it will just happen here. And that ectopic fat is the fat that happens in your organs. It's your fatty liver, it's your pancreas, it's your kidneys, it's your heart. And as you start to build up fat in your liver, you have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. That is deadly. But what happens is the organs ain't supposed to have fat. They're supposed to be doing organ stuff. Like they ain't supposed to be figuring out what to do with all this fat that we can't control. So the organs can't do what they're doing, and it spills out of the organs and becomes visceral fat. That's that fat that's underneath your abdominal wall that is choking your organs. It can't do anything else. It is just building up, and then that belly starts going out like this. And the men look at it as the beer belly. Great name. But beer ain't what did. Didn't help it, but it ain't what did. And we got hypertension. Hypertension is when your kidneys retained sodium. If you have hypertension, that means you have so much insulin flowing through your blood all the time, right, that you're relatively insulin resistant or pretty damn close to it. And your kidneys start to reabsorb sodium. And when they reabsorb sodium, they remove the water from the salt. So the salt stays in your kidneys, and now you have a higher water pressure in your blood, which will lead to your high blood pressure, which is good if you want high blood, right? But we can't not have that if we are chronically have insulin flowing through our bodies, okay? And then we have glucose intolerance. Exactly what it means. Our bodies are intolerant. It doesn't know what to do with anymore. When we get to the stage of glucose intolerance or hypoglycemia, our body starts to glycate blood, which means the blood sugar is in the blood. It got nowhere to go. It's been trying for 25 years to do something with it, and it finally can't. So it starts to meld onto blood cells. And this is involuntary. You can't make this not happen. And this is when it goes onto the walls of your blood. It hardens your blood cells. It's referred to as candy coating. And then what happens is that is your A1C. All right, so everyone, here's the A1C number. They don't really know what that's the amount of glyconated blood that you have, roughly. I mean, there's more to this, so I'm just kind of giving you the simplified version of this. But when you have too much glyconated blood in you, the blood is malleable. It flows everywhere, right? It goes to your fingertips, to your pinky toe, everywhere. So in order for it to get certain places, it's got to go through some pretty tight capillaries. Not everything is a big giant vein getting to it, right? These little capillaries that got to take it through. But if your blood is hardened and you have bad blood pressure and your arteries are inflamed, where can blood not get to? Think of a diabetic that's lost his foot. Right? All of a sudden, you start losing circulation to certain parts of your body. This didn't happen because you had some bad stroke of circulation and genetics. This happened over 25, 30 years of this same process. We're eating the same foods. And the body is doing everything it can to not chew us up. But we keep putting ourselves in these positions because we don't know. We just eating what they tell us to eat. And then we talk about hypertriglyceridemia. Hyper means too much. Triglycerides are fat. Anemia means in your blood. We have too much fat in our blood. Why is it in our blood? Liver's got to get it out of there as soon as it can. And God forbid it's fructose, because fructose can only be processed in your liver. Glucose go through your blood and your liver. High fructose corn syrup and fructose can only be processed in your liver, and your liver can only do so much. And when this gets into your blood, things like arterial sclerosis, like this will start to harden your arteries slowly, right? As the little fatty acids, they kind of permeate through the arterial walls, and then that's your inflammation. And then what will happen is, like, cholesterol will come through, and cholesterol kind of gets stuck there, plaque gets built, and then we'll, maybe give someone a statin or something like that, which is what the doctor should do, because we want to control the plaque that's there. But long term, what do we really need to do? We need to get rid of all the fat that is in our blood. And when I say fat, I don't mean bacon fat. Like bacon fat, good fat. So like nature didn't give us bad fat animals, so you're not going to go eat a bad animal fat. It's insulin resistant, but this is the processed stuff, and we're going to touch on that in a second. So, soda and juice, the high fructose corn syrup that is in everything we eat. If it is sweetened, it has some sort of a synthetic sugar in it. Can't not. Gatorade, best drink ever, because y'all think that you're going to work out here, you're going to go throw down your Gatorade and go home and like, I just replaced my life. How many of you know what an electrolyte is? Right. Most people don't. They know they need them, but they ain't really sure what they are. But they know they need them, so they drink 27 gallons of water and don't realize they just pissed all their electrolytes out. Like, there's a whole system for how this kind of works. But when we finish here at the gym and we go and we get in our car and we throw down our Gatorade, because that's what Gatorade told us to do. That's a sports recovery drink. It's owned by Pepsi Cola. All right, so first of all, right now, if Pepsi is telling you what you should drink after working out, you should be getting your advice from someone else. Pepsi don't give a crap what you do. Pepsi cares that they sell Gatorade. But what happens is this. Yes, there may be some electrolytes in there that can be helpful, but the amount of sugar and high fructose corn syrup in there stymies everything. It's an immediate spike of insulin, and that takes a long time for it to go down. And now, since we started our morning off maybe with like a bowl of cereal or a donut or a biscuit and gravy, we already started the carbohydrate train rolling in the morning. And there's one thing here that this may be the most important thing for you to try to remember out of today. If there is insulin in your blood, your ability to burn fat is turned off. Two things can happen at the same time. Insulin does a few things. It increases nutrient uptake into a cell, it clings onto the cell receptor door, and it dumps in whatever it's got. It retards fat oxidation, which is fat burning. It stops it. It can't. Body has to get rid of the glucose first. It can't choose, well, hey, I just want to use fat here. It can't. If there's more glucose, it's using glucose. And it increases dramatically fat storage. So insulin is jamming stuff into a cell. It will not allow fat to burn over here, and it's increasing your fat storage, whether that's in your muscles, your adipose tissue, which are your fat cells. So that's what's happening with insulin. There's more, but for what we're talking about here, that's it. So, and then we look at flour. Flour is genius. If you go to Europe and you eat pasta, you are most likely not going to get sick. The germ, the fiber, and all that is still in the flour. They grist it as a complete flour. We don't. Because we figured out a long time ago that if we could stretch flour by taking it as it's immature and it is stripped of its husk, of its fiber, and everything is gone, everything that you need from it. And what happens is, without the fiber in the husk, the second it touches your mouth, glucose is released. It cannot. So the husk and the fiber slow down digestion, just like fat from the butter and the mashed potatoes will stymie the release of the blood sugar. Same thing here. All right, so as they make this flour, now they have this flour, and it doesn't look good when they're done stripping all this stuff down. So what do they do to it? Because we only like stuff that's nice and pure white. They bleach the crap out of it, and any remaining proteins in there are gone. There's nothing left there. And then they add some shit back to it to enrich it, so that we think that we're eating something good. That flour is in every bit of processed food that you eat. It is in Twizzlers. If I think about it, why does a Twizzler eat a flour? And poor Melissa, she's got celiac, so she can't eat Twizzlers anymore, and she's not happy about it. She's been unhappy about it for years. But because it takes food and it stretches it out further. It adds a filler of which they don't need to put real ingredients in, because they've stretched the life out of this food. Okay, so, and that flour is the same flour that makes your pasta, that makes your cookies, that makes your bread. Your bread, remember, your bread don't mold no more either, so you got that going for you too. But if you took all of those pieces out and you put them on a table and you converted them into sugar cubes, you would be amazed at what you're looking at. And what happens is that as that sugar is in our blood, what are we guaranteed to have in our blood trying to do something with the sugar? Insulin. So part of the problem that we have is that most of these things we've grown to believe are inevitable. I'm getting older. I should be weaker. I should have some troubles. I go, I'm 60 years old. It's about time I go on blood pressure medication. I've made it this long. Like we've grown to think that these things are acceptable, and that they're inevitable. Like at some point, this is just going to happen to me. Well, yeah, but it should anger us that we believe that this stuff's inevitable. And we shouldn't be accepting of this. This should be something that kind of pisses you off. Like the whole bliss point of food, that kind of made me mad as I was reading it. Like you know what you're doing. And they all going to stand up in front of their pulpit and tell you how, like, people come first, and you can have 2 Cokes a day and you'll be okay. Well, that's the Coca-Cola doing that report. I don't buy a Coca-Cola. So I don't, kind of a tough thing to swallow. So let's just change gears here for a little bit. So the founder of CrossFit, his name is Greg Glassman. He came up with this full methodology of measuring fitness and connecting health and fitness. He's the one who really created this whole thing that we're doing here. He, in 2017-18, sold CrossFit, and he started MetFix. Part of the reason is because CrossFit was going real super competitive with CrossFit Games, and he thought the message of metabolic repair was getting lost. So I've aligned myself with that part of CrossFit more so than the competitive part my entire career. So, and he comes up with this thing he calls the 5 buckets of death. Pretty neat name, but we got 5 buckets. Bucket number 1 is kinetic. Bucket number 2, genetic. Genetic, I'm sorry. It's microbic and toxic. You see. So we look at 4 different ways that we can die, right? But there's 5th way. This. What do you think that one's called? Huh?
Diets?
Chronic.
Chronic.
They're all icks. This is the last ick. This is the big one. So, a kinetic death, you fall, you get into a car accident, right? Something happens, something traumatic. Can happen to all of us. Genetic, sorry about your parents. That's something, leukemia, MS, whatever. However, that seems to have been passed down. Type 2 diabetes and all that is not genetic. These are lifestyle things. So before you think that, like, I got this from my mom, no, you got this from our culture. Microbic, getting the virus, getting sick, right? And toxic would be poisoning, overdosing, what you have there. These four categories, 20% of deaths in America are attributed to those four things. 10% of medical spending. So for 20% of the deaths, they spend 10% of the money to try to figure out how to help us if any one of those four things happen. The fifth bucket is chronic disease. Chronic disease is everything we have that's metabolic related. Right? It is type 2 diabetes. It is how we grow cancer in the body. Is chronic disease the direct result of cancer? That's arguable, but we now understand that cancer thrives in a sugary environment. And if you got a lot of sugar in your environment, that's going to help your cancer thrive. So can you thwart some of that off by removing the sugar from your life? 100%. Hyperglycemia, whatever it is you want to put in here, right? These are all good. Cardiorespiratory problems. Heart disease is a great one, right? All of these are chronic diseases. These are all diseases that we have made. We have created. We have eaten ourselves into this, not intentionally, because we didn't know. So in the 70s and 80s, we only had like 3 or 4 channels on TV. For those of us old enough to remember what it was like when your mom turned on the vacuum and the TV got staticky, That's the way it was. That was real life back then. And you didn't get information like we have now. So when on the TV would come on and say, hey, saturated fat is causing heart attacks, you need to start using margarine and stuff like that. Well, everybody listened because, the TV could never tell you anything that wasn't true. We all heard the same stuff. If we're all hearing the same stuff, it must be true. Like, we didn't use butter in my house. My father swore by margarine. He was convinced that but what we found out later on is, who made margarine? The petroleum companies made margarine because it's not food. It is synthetic. It is made to mimic things. But what it has done to us on a metabolic level, for our metabolic dysfunction, we can't get away from. And that same process of that margarine, the oils, is still in all of our refined foods today. So the chronic disease, but it's surprising if it made up 80% of all deaths, are attributed to chronic disease. 8 of 10 of us will die in here, and there will be some link to chronic disease in our death. 90% of medical spending goes to researching chronic disease. Think about that. 80% of the deaths are chronic disease. 90% of all the money they spend are to fight and help us rid ourselves of chronic disease. So any of those numbers make any sense? No, it's disturbing. 90% all of the money we spend in our medical system in America, we're good. Our pharmaceutical, like, we take more drugs than anyone else. Like, we're good. Nothing has gotten better. Matter of fact, we're going to argue that we're sicker today than we've ever been. We're sicker now than we've ever been in all of humanity. Other countries look at America and they say, look at what you all do. Like, we are in utopia. We have an abundance of everything. We're not short of everything. Even if you're poor and hungry in America, you still live really well. Like, there's always something to eat. There's always something, right? So we do this. Now, with the link to all of this is that if I am suffering from anything over here, any one of those things are getting me, any one of these things has a better chance of getting me.
Yeah.
If I get a virus, I'm more likely to fight it off than somebody who is got type 2 diabetes or hyperglycemia, right? I'm in better position. My immune system isn't in this constant state of trying to repair what I'm doing to it every day. If I get into a car accident, if I'm 100% healthy, I am more apt to be able to maybe fight something off and recover, have more bone growth. My metabolism works so well that if I need to regrow tissue because I tore something or I ripped something or I broke something, I am more apt in my physical presence now to grow and repair than somebody who is on the bad side of hypertension. Because my metabolism is kind of on point. I kind of align with eating stuff I find in nature, and I don't have any comorbidities. Let's look at COVID, right? That ain't nothing better than the COVID example.
Right.
If you were elderly or you had a comorbidity of any one of these things, you were susceptible to COVID. And I watched it in New Jersey. They took elderly and they shuttled them into nursing homes to protect them. And what they did was they took the most vulnerable, right? Because when we're older, we've lost our muscle mass. And if you don't think that muscle mass is 100% of your metabolism, you don't understand what your muscle mass does. Our muscle mass gives us the ability to fight off sickness, and it gives us the ability to burn energy and to keep ourselves well. Muscle mass is a huge indicator of our metabolic health. So when COVID happened, and not that healthy people didn't get sick from COVID, I'm not trying to say that, but the ones who found themselves in this bucket, this year was tragic for them. There was nothing they could do. A virus came along and it started to take away the weak. And by weak, I don't mean weak-minded. I mean the ones that maybe just haven't taken care of their health. They found themselves in sickness, and when something happened, their bodies didn't have the ability to rebound and recover from that. So when we look at the amount of the deaths and all this stuff happening, this here, unlike this, and this is 100% lifestyle driven. We drive that. We can't control a car accident. I can't control what my mom did to me. And you get a virus, well, you can wear a mask and do all that stuff you want, but as soon as you grab the door at Walmart, you got a germ on you, so it's probably going to happen at some point to you anyway. And something toxic, well, that's an air we breathe, and we kind of hope it don't happen. This is every decision we make to pick up a fork or open up a pop. That's every decision we've made about how we take care of ourselves, culturally and lifestyle, wraps up in the chronic disease bucket, and then that kind of affects everything. So the sedentary lifestyle, the not eating fats and proteins, because remember, if we're only eating like this refined carb stuff, right? We're grabbing Sonic. There's no Sonic in New Jersey, but you guys dig on your Sonic. We have other crap, but if we're eating the Sonics and all the and Chow and Sack and all this stuff, we are devoiding ourselves of high fat, moderate protein, and healthy carbs. And I'm not telling you that carbs are the enemy. The carbs need to be coupled with fat and protein, and they need to be grown out of the ground. They can't be grown out of a lab. All right. So when we look at all this, now we want to be able to say, well, how the hell do I know if I'm healthy or not? Because remember, health is soundness, right? So we still, if anyone can tell me what soundness is, I'm open to some
good job, okay?
Some definition of it, but I'm yet to be able to find it. So we look for ways of how do we measure health? Mm-hmm. We do it pretty simple. Over here, we're going to have sickness. Over here, we're going to have wellness.
And just
over here, we're going to have fitness. This was one of the original things that in 2011 that I heard Coach Glassman do in a seminar, and it stopped me in my tracks. It became very real for me. So when we talk about sickness, wellness, and fitness, how do we measure that? what is a quantifiable measure? What is the metric for that? Like, I feel okay, but am I okay? Let's take blood pressure. 120 over 70. Pretty good, right? You go to the doctors, lows you up. You say, you know what, Chris, you're pretty good. 120 over 70, you're well. See you in 6 months. Now I go there. I'm 140 over 90. Am I well?
Yeah.
Huh?
Can be.
I can be with 140 over 90. Yeah, that's on the road to not being well. All right, so when we measure wellness and we go over to this side, we are moving towards sickness. I am 105 over like 58, something like that, just kind of chilled out all the time. So let's put like my 105 over here. Like my 105, 58. You'd all say I'm relatively fit, right? I seem like a pretty fit guy. This here is unhealthy. This is getting down towards sickness. If it gets any higher than this, you're going to need more attention. But this right here, what does your doctor do when he sees that? He puts you on medicine. Then what happens? And it's good, because this is not a knock on doctors in no way, shape, or form. Doctors are set up for two things: trauma and infection. Just like your mechanic. You go into your mechanic because you need brakes, and he does brakes on your car, and he starts your car up and knows it runs like crap. He ain't fixing your engine. He's merely going to tell you, you may want to get your engine looked at. But he's going to fix the problem, the task at hand of what you brought it there for. You go to the doctor, you not feel well, he does all your blood work, blood pressure's high, you're going to go on blood pressure medication. He's probably going to tell you, because you all probably heard it from a doctor at least once or twice, that you may want to look at your diet and exercise, but he's not built for metabolic rehab. He's not built to sit there and watch over you for the next year and slap the Cheetos out of your hand. He can't do that. But his task at hand is to what? It is to normalize your blood pressure. So you go on your blood pressure medication right here, and that moves you back to wellness. So on your blood pressure medication, he pumps you up, he checks you out, he gives you a high five, says you're good. Are you good? Yes or no? No. No, you can't be. Because what do we still have? We have a systemic problem that has us here. We're not addressing a root cause. We're not even talking about a root cause. We're talking symptom-based medicine to move us on to the next thing. And then he needs to roll you out the door because someone else is coming in the door, and they got their own problems, right? But all of these end up being lifestyle-driven things, right? And we can do this with just about anything. So now take this right here. If I was to get the flu and my blood pressure was to go up, it would be catastrophic for me to go from here to here. I would probably be dead. It would probably be something so life-changing that I don't know what happened. But under the normal rigors of life, of me catching a cold or catching a flu and getting sick in the winter and feeling like crap for a couple days, my blood pressure may get up to well. And this is referring to, like, this is how you hedge your bets. If you're a gambler, you like to set yourself up to win. Right? So if I'm playing pool with somebody and I want to win, I'm going to set up a game in which I know that I will ultimately come out on top. This is hedging your bets with your health. And this can work with everything. This we can do with bone density, right? Minus 1.0 is good average bone density. You're going to start to lose your bone density after 45 years old. Your best bone density is way behind you once you get into your 40s. And as we get older, since we do not do any weightlifting, we don't do any exercise, and for all of you that think that you go for a walk around the park, you're not exercising, you're walking. Right? And like there's no difference in walking in the gym or walking in your living room. Walking is walking. You can walk in your garden, you can walk in the gym. When we talk about exercise, we talk about something that is load-bearing, right? Because bone density can be improved, right? So bone density here, 1.0 is good. I'm at like +1, somewhere's in there. But if you get down to minus 1.5, you fall, you break your hip. And as we get older, how many of us know somebody who's fallen down, broken their hip, and their life was never the same? It can't be. Your bone density has gone down. That means the ability to not break is lessened. And this is as a result of what? 25, 30, 40 years of what we've been eating. We haven't been eating the food that does one of the two things, creates the energy and helps us grow and repair. That's all food does. It ain't here to make us feel good, although it does. But if we're eating based on emotion, we may want to retract that and think how we're doing it. So we're eating foods that are high in fat, protein, moderate in carbs, real ones, not donut carbs. We have a chance to move this needle this way. So here, everything we do is immeasurable. And we can measure this every day. So this takes soundness out. Soundness no longer has its place here because we can define our health based on basic metrics. We define our health this way is the same way that we do our fitness.
Absolutely.
Right? So when we, I used this example before. When we go to the doctor and the doctor gives us blood pressure medication and he calls that prescription in, some of you have heard me say this before. We drive to the Walgreens, we pull in, we walk into the Walgreens, and there's all this crap at the counter: Reese's peanut butter cups, M&Ms, all these nice little snacks at Walgreens. And now all of you know, Walgreens is the corner of happy and healthy because they've been telling me that on their damn commercial for the last 15 years. Walgreens on the corner, happy and healthy. You got to walk past all this garbage to get to the medication in the back to medicate you from all this shit you've been eating the whole time to require you to go back to get this medication. To go back up to the counter for them to say, would you like 2 for $1 on a Reese's peanut butter cup? Right? I mean, it's insane how this works. But the food companies and the pharmaceutical companies, they're in perfect concert together. It's perfect. It works out well. And if we think like in New Jersey, when you talk about like a CVS and a Walgreens, they're literally every half a mile away. Like in the town I lived in, there's a Walgreens, a CVS, a Walgreens, a Walgreens, a Walgreens, and another 2 CVSs, all within 3 or 4 miles. Either we're buying a lot of shampoo from Walgreens, or we are over-medicated because they're all full. You go in there and you look at the bins with all the letters, and it's like, holy crap, look at all of this medication we're dealing out. And it is, I used to refer to this in New Jersey with a couple of doctors over that dealers would deal and cutters would cut. You go to a surgeon, he's probably going to offer you surgery. You go to the doctor, he's probably going to offer you some sort of medication to fix what he's got. Most of that stuff is all, again, lifestyle driven. So we talk about going to the surgeon because our shoulders hurt and all that. Melissa's a great example. Melissa constantly had shoulder and back issues going on forever. She constantly complained about it. And then what we talked about was get off all your nonsense food. Cut your pop, cut your sugar, cut your seed oils. Give it a couple of weeks to see what happens. So what she did, she started eating foods that are non-inflammatory, anti-inflammatory foods, which, interestingly enough, another way of describing anti-inflammatory foods are fat and protein that we find in nature. Meats, vegetables, nuts, seeds, some starch, little fruit, no sugar, refined carbs, or seed oil. If you remove those things, your inflammation goes down. Your inflammation goes down, what happens? Everything starts to repair. The metabolic part of our lives is 100% repairable. It just takes time. Your blood sugar and insulin levels, they'll get right in like 2 to 4 weeks. The first 2 weeks are going to be really, really uncomfortable. But about as uncomfortable as the alcoholic that goes to his first 2 weeks of AA meetings with not drinking. Well, he's got a little bit of the shakes. That mind is going 100 miles an hour, right? In AA, it's referred to as an allergy of the body and a malady of the mind. It is a body that knows it can't happen, but it is a mind that convinces you it'll all be okay once you have one. And it never turns off. That allergy and the malady, they just keep fighting each other until one day, what do? We have to make a conscious decision to stop it, but we have to understand what it is we're trying to stop. So this health that we have, this takes decades to make. This isn't Chris going out and having a burger and a milkshake tonight and being a diabetic tomorrow. That's not how any of this works. And this doesn't mean that if you slip up and go out and eat a couple pieces of pizza or drink a pop that life is over. But this is a cumulative, long game. What do we want out of our lives? Are we sometimes sick and tired of being sick and tired? Well, if you are, then there's some changes that can make. None of them are all too radical, right? The changes that we're talking about are really basically simple. We have a kitchen audit sheet that we're going to send out in your emails, and it literally gives you a list of all the things that these are in your kitchen, they should be removed. And if those are not there, and we're not ingesting any of those things on that list, we're probably going to be doing okay. All right, so now when we talk about the fitness component of what we're doing, the fitness component is really an accoutrement to the diet. The diet is the predeterminant of our health. Our health is determined by what we eat. You are what you eat. It sounds silly, but that is exactly it. Calories in, calories out doesn't work. No way it works, but it's empty. There's very hard. It's like saying, extra money makes you wealthy. Yeah, but how do I get extra money? What did you do to get the extra money? No one tells you that. Calories in, calories out sounds real good, and it sounds like a good marching plan to go into the gym. But a calorie is, you take something and you put it in a vacuum, you light it on fire, and as long as it takes for a degree of water to raise a degree of temperature of water is how you start to figure out your calories. Everything's got a calorie. Everything. You can burn this marker. It's going to have a caloric unit. Eat it and tell me how it does. Right? It has a calorie because it's burnable. So it's true, kind of, not true. We need to eat enough food to sustain our life, to sustain exercise, not weight gain. And that's hard to do, right? So how do we measure the exercise? So the exercise in the year is kind of measured almost the same way as nutrition, right? We can measure everything we do. All right. So I take Big Nasty. I say, okay, well, I set up 2 boxes here, one here, one here. And I say for 1 minute, we are going to jump up and down on these boxes until a minute is up. And we go and I do 40 box jumps and Erin does 20. Who did more work? You think I did. I did 40. Because she can't keep up with me, though she can. Truth is, we both did 100% of what our capacity is to do. She didn't have the capacity to do 21. She gave 100% of her intensity, relative intensity to what her body is capable of doing at that time, and she did 20. And she was as gassed as I am. But in 3 weeks, we come back in here, and she says, I'm going to get you today. We set up boxes, and we go, and I do 40, and she does 30. What's changed? Same amount of time. It's the same 60 seconds, but her work capacity has incredibly increased. And in order for the work capacity to increase for Erin or you or anybody else, there has to have been a histological change in the body. Something has to have changed. Somehow or another, we have more respiratory endurance. Our legs are able to fire up. We can create more energy. We have more muscle. We have the greater ability to do more work over the same amount of time. And in CrossFit, that is referred to as work capacity over broad time and modal domains. So that means I should be able to pick anything that my crazy little mind can come up with, and I can come up with some stuff. And I can put you to work doing it. And we can measure that outcome. We can measure the outcome of doing basic weightlifting. I take Melissa and I give her a 100-pound bar on the floor, and I say, pick it up to your shoulders. Well, she's going to go from the floor to her shoulders. We're going to call that like 5 feet. So 100 pounds have moved 5 feet. So we take the force times the distance, and it took 1 second for her to do. We can take force times distance, divide it by time, and give you the amount of energy that she put out to move that barbell. And we can measure that over and over. That's why we keep time for these things. That's why some of these workouts we do, you keep in your phone because you want to see where you are now as to where you were before. So now if Erin and I come back in like a month and we do box jumps again and Erin hits 43 and I'm still at 40, she done did good. But what does that tell us about Erin? Erin's not magical. Erin didn't come in here with magic powers to be able to do super cool workout stuff. No, she's changed her diet. Her diet aligns with the ability to do exercise, not weight gain. And she's put in some of the effort here. And some of the effort here doesn't mean you got to come in here and go 100% crazy every time you come in here. You go relative capacity to what it is you're capable of doing, but there has to be an end game and a measurable. And we know from talking earlier, if we can increase our muscle mass, we know that our metabolism has to work better. You burn 70% of your calories, you are literally burning right now. You're literally burning 70% of the calories that you're going to burn all day are burning now. 10% is going to be your body doing digestion and all that stuff. And then the rest of you kind of do with exercise. We don't burn fat in here. So we think that we're going to come in here and burn off a little fat if we get ourselves moving a little bit. Doesn't happen. Can't. When we come in here and we start to move and that heart rate goes up, body changes energy systems, and we start working on the glycogen that's in the muscles. That's why if you get on the bike and you've ever pedaled real hard, you feel your legs start to burn. Like, ain't none of you got on the bike where you ain't felt your legs burn, because that's why y'all don't like the bike. All right, there's no way. So when that happens, physiologically what's happening is your body's going through glycolysis. It is taking the glucose in your body and it is converting it into energy. And as it does this conversion, it releases a lactate and hydrogen. And that lactate and hydrogen changes the acidity in the muscles. That's why it burns. And then what do you have to do? You have to stop for a second. It goes away. That lactate has then been utilized and processed and gone into your mitochondria to be used for energy. So the body uses everything it can. But when you feel that, that is the blood in your muscles doing all its work. If we don't have enough muscle mass, or we're just driving on carbs, and we notice sometimes here, if you go for 35, 40 seconds and then that happens, but then somebody like, Erin or myself or Teresa can just kind of keep going, and you think, wow, they're lucky, right? They never get tired. No, they do. But if their body is not loaded with sugar, they're not crashing and burning. See, you come in here and you go real hard, you burn out your resources of glucose, because that's going to be burned first. You can't burn fat, and then you crash. You need a minute to recover. Then you can go again. Then you need a minute to recover, and you can go again. For me, that doesn't happen. And the reason that doesn't happen is because all of the time that I spend not being here, my body is burning fat. It burns fat. It burns fat as I sit. It's just the way the body works. So my body, my kidneys and my liver produces ketones. And when it's time to go here, or if they drop the puck and I'm playing hockey, I don't have an off switch. Like, I don't get tired. I can go for a full hour of skating 100 miles an hour and doing my thing. Well, I get a little winded, yes, but I recover quick. The guys that I play hockey with, they don't. They go for 45 seconds and they need a couple of minutes before they can do something again. They all live on the same diet as everybody else. For them, they're still young. They're 30, 35, 40 years old, and they don't think any of this bad stuff's ever going to happen to them. They're immune from it. We all are, until we're not. So the alcoholic that one day wakes up with cirrhosis of the liver, but he didn't get that from 3 whiskeys. He got that from 25, 30 years of incessant drinking all the time. And now he's at the point where he's at an irreversible disease. Lifestyle chosen, right? So the takeaways from what we're doing here is that chronic disease that we have is largely preventable, right? We're doing. And when we look at the kids, if we think we're in bad shape now, most of us are fortunate that when we were kids, they didn't have this crap for us to eat. Like, we didn't eat this stuff as kids. My mother made dinner. There was never soda in the house. If it was a treat. If we went to Burger King, it was like a family night out. Like my mother cooked everything. There wasn't all this. And I'm not saying that, making the homemade pie or cookies every now and then is going to get you, but the food today is different. This food today is out to get you. And to go backwards a little bit, when we're talking about the bliss point of food, they had a meeting of all the big food companies. The CEOs all got together in Minnesota. This is back in 1999, year 2000. And they were talking, one from Kraft, the CEO from Kraft, brought up child obesity and said, we need to figure something out before the government steps in and makes us figure something out, because childhood obesity is getting out of hand. And the other CEOs all said in harmony, we will not change our recipes for anything. We will not take any of the sugar out of anything, because if we don't provide it, somebody else is going to come and make something sweeter. And that's not fair to who? To their shareholders. And you sit there and you're like, damn. It's like the CEO of Coca-Cola, and Kraft, and Pillsbury, Procter & Gamble, Conagra Foods, Kellogg's, General Mills, Post, they're all there. They all know what this is. And then, in the 2000s, I didn't know any of this stuff. And how many of you, as like 30, 35-year-olds, had Go-Gurts? Those little, yeah. We gave Samantha Go-Gurts all the time because it was yogurt in a tube.
Thank you.
And yogurt's good for you. That's what they've been telling us all these years. Like, you eat yogurt, the good stuff going to happen. A Go-Gurt had actually more sugar than a bowl of Lucky Charms.
Oh, do you salt?
A massive amount. Now, would any of you sit down and eat a bowl of Lucky Charms? Yeah, they may taste good, but the ramifications of that are never ending. Their blood sugar shot through the roof, and now our kids today, what do we give them? And it ain't none of you waking up and making scrambled eggs, bacon, and a glass of water. None of you doing it. They all get juices. They get a pop. They get some garbage at the Shadow Stack. Because I go to Shadow Stack and get coffee every morning, and there's parents in there with their kids, and these kids are loading up on all the stuff they can get their hands on. And then we send them to school, and their crash and burn isn't like ours. We're grown-ass adults. Our bodies are fully mature. We can fight off a milkshake. We can fight this off. We can kind of muddle through. Kids can't. They're dependent on us. So we load them up with all this processed stuff because that's what's given to us, and that's what's geared towards them. Like, who don't want to eat a bowl of Fruity Pebbles? Like, look at the box. Like, how would you not want to eat them? And they're pebbles and they're fruity. Like, come on. It's poison. And then we wonder why, when we look at these kids, the depression, the anxiety, the ADHD, these kids all have IEPs. I didn't even know what an IEP was until I came out to Oklahoma and someone explained to me what an IEP was. Back then, you just kind of make little slugs. But we all stayed in the same classroom. Like, there wasn't 15, it's just like this stuff today is it's hard for me to wrap my head around. But I can say with a certain degree of certainty that the difference between these kids and when I was their age is 100% in the food they're eating. We are doing this, and none of us wanted to change it, because if you took the Go-Gurt away from Samantha, Samantha was going to bitch. And what did I want to not happen? I didn't want to hear it. So I give her another one, right? I mean, I ain't no dummy. I know how to keep the kid calm. But all the while, I'm going to refer to myself in that regard as a lazy parent. Like, I didn't want to have the headache. I didn't want to have the hustle of being talked back to, or God forbid, my kid was unhappy for a couple of minutes. Right? The hierarchy of the world is different today. Today we live our lives around our kids being safe and happy all the time. And no, like part of us needs to drive home this fact that I need to parent you for 20 years from now. I don't need to parent you for tomorrow. And this food that we feed them, if anything we could do is start reading the label and the ingredient list. And if it has an ingredient list, put it away. Because then, how many ingredients are in a turnip? How many ingredients are in a chicken thigh? Right? It's one. And this idea that we can't feed our kids because it costs too much to feed them healthy food, that is utter nonsense. Melissa and I, her boys came over the other night for dinner. And I went to Walmart and I picked up chicken thighs. I picked up potatoes. What else I picked up? Brussels sprouts or asparagus, something like that. And I went home and cooked it all up in 25 minutes and fed 4 people. It cost me $17.50. If we went to McDonald's to eat 4 people, it's going to cost me $60. If I go to Sonic, it's going to cost me even more. So this idea that we can't, because it just isn't cost effective to be able to make healthy food. And yeah, I hear that one all the time. It costs a lot to eat healthy. Well, it costs more to eat at McDonald's, actually. But it's easier. And since we know that chronic disease is lifestyle driven, what is it saying about our lifestyle? We want something easy. We want something soft. We're Americans. We've been conditioned for this. Our lives are getting softer. We're required to do less and less. We don't even have to go to the store because they'll deliver the shit right to us. We don't have to get off our couch, right? Because they're just going to keep bringing it to us. So there's nothing of indulgence that we cannot want that will not be brought directly to us to keep us on our couch. We can gamble on any game by just go. We don't even have to go to the track no more, right? We could just do it all right here. We can order all of our garbage food, and it's all being delivered directly to us. Nothing is required of us. We don't even need to have cash. We just got to done. And then we're eating, and we ain't moving, and we're sicker and sicker. 90% of our medical spends are on the 80% of deaths of chronic disease that is lifestyle driven. That's what we're doing. So this here is just to try to understand the what, the why, and the how. Hey, if I was going to give you anything to suggest for you, if you want to try to change your diet, I would say go high fat, moderate protein, low carb. No refined food at all. No sugar, no seed oils. Reindeer organs. And then I would do intermittent fasting. And the reason why you would do an intermittent fasting is nowhere in nature did we ever eat 2 or 3 hours. I don't care if you were a master archer. You weren't shooting enough arrows at food to eat that often. Just didn't happen. You'd lucky if you caught something if you ate within a day or 2. But someone told us that we need to be eating every 2 or 3 hours. Now, if you're a bodybuilder looking to sculpt all your stuff and you have a specific diet based to that, go ahead and do your thing. But for for us, if I eat at 6 o'clock at night and I don't eat until noon the next day, noon or 1 o'clock, how many hours is that? That's like 15, 16 hours, somewhere like that. Here's the guarantee. If I haven't eaten since I've eaten dinner and I've gone 14, 15, 16 hours, there's no glucose in my blood. The only glucose that's in my blood was manufactured by my liver via gluconeogenesis because I needed blood sugar and my body creates it. I don't need to add it. There's no nutritional requirement for sugar anywhere. It doesn't exist. And if I can do this for 14, 15, 16 hours and I get the glucose out of my system, what else is not in my system?
Insulin.
Insulin. Why not? Because my blood sugar is not high. And if insulin is not in my blood system, what can my fat start to do? Burn. Crazy. It is just the absence of one increases the other. So we have glucagon, right? That's released by the pancreas as well. And if your blood, and this is not for a type 1 diabetic, that's a polar opposite of a type 2. But if you have low insulin because you haven't eaten sugar in 14, 15, 16 hours, for one, the only thing that's going to be really affected by this is the noise that you hear in your head. And if you don't think there's noise in your head, it's the voice in your head telling you don't hear noise. It's always there. That voice in our head does everything. It tells us what to do, when to do it, whether we like it or not. But if we can get 14, 15, 16 hours of not having insulin in our blood, and then we sit down to eat lunch or whatever, and we eat protein, we eat fat, we eat reasonable carbs through vegetables, and then we don't snack on anything other than like nuts or seeds or something like that until we have dinner, and we eat the same dinner. And then say we come in here and we do, that 15-minute, one of these 15-minute stupid workouts that we do, then you go home. For that 24-hour period, you are 100% guaranteed to have stopped chronic disease in its tracks. It cannot move forward. It is impossible. And if we do that for day 2, then we do that for day 3. Over the cumulative effect of this, we can start to reverse some of these things. So intermittent fasting is a very good tool to use. You can literally set your clock to it. You may need to white knuckle it. You may feel hungry. You may get a headache. But that's just reversing what we've been doing for as long as we've been doing. And for like everyone that comes in here, the worst thing to do is come in here and keep doing all this stuff and you foresee a change, right? You look like, nothing's changing. Well, this is why. And this is how we can begin to do that.
Yeah.
So I hope that the stuff that we're going over here has been beneficial to you, that you've learned something from it. There's some takeaways. In June, we're starting what's called a Spark program, and you guys can let this go to anybody who this may be helpful to. It is a 4-week program that goes Monday and Wednesday at 6:30. And I heard a couple people message me. They said, "Well, that's Bible study." I understand. God won't mind if you start taking care of your body. Like He gave you the body, and your body's running like shit. And you can go sit in the Bible study and pray for change. But what do we know about faith? We know a few things about faith. Faith is that faith without works is dead. You can't do it. You can have all the faith in the world. I come into this room and I turn on that light switch. If the light does not come on, I can do one of two things. I can muster up the business of changing the light bulb or checking the fuse, or I can accept darkness. Right? But darkness is not something I'm going to accept. So I want to put my faith has to have some works. I have to put some work into it. If I pray for potatoes, I need to grab a hoe and turn the ground. It doesn't just happen because we want it to. We have to put in the effort. So this class goes for 4 weeks, Monday and Wednesday, and it starts off with like a 25-minute lecture, kind of like what we're doing now, and it progresses. It gets a little bit deeper into the cellular stuff. And then there's a workout that's a beginner-level workout that would test anybody, depending on how hard you go, to kind of on-ramp somebody into this. So if you know any members of your family or friends who are relatively unhealthy, look down, they can't see their toes because they have this belly fat, or they're medicated, or they're sick, or they're just tired all the time. Like, this is where you start. This is where this stuff begins to change. All right, so with that, thank you very much for your patience with me as I've been putting this together for like the last 6 weeks. Melissa's the same. She don't even talk to me. She looks at me and she's like, okay. Hopefully you guys got something out of this. I put a lot into it. If you want to know anything more, anything deeper about this, I would set up another one of these if you wanted to understand how it works from an energy pathway perspective. I'm wide open to talk about any of this. If you have any questions, you can message me personally. If you have any questions now,
Can I make one comment?
you need to make some few, as long as we're good.
I've learned that there's 2 kinds of foods. One is food that is alive and lives. It comes from nature, and it spoils in a week if you leave it out in the open air. Food like substances that are dead and not alive, like chips or noodles, you can leave out and it'll never spoil.
That's right.
That's the difference.
Right, and that's because the food companies have created everything to be shelf-stable. Like I have this Mason genie at home. We put everything in mason jars. I use this thing and it seals everything up. You know why? Because I'm relatively cheap. I don't like throwing stuff out. I don't like stuff spoiling. Like, I feel like I'm throwing money away. So we seal everything up. So I would like to see how a strawberry could last for a month. No, maybe something different because Melissa will eat them in a day. But yeah, shelf stability is the name of the game if you're the food industry, right? The longer we can keep something on the shelf, the better off we are. But no, food should not last. It should go away. It should mold. Like my mother would cut mold off of bread, and Al and I, we would cry because we thought we were disgusting for having to eat moldy bread. And shut up, Christopher, and eat your bread. And that's what we did. We just cried and ate bread with mold cut off. Yes,
I kept the mold off of cheese and used
that's right.
bread. How to start to replace the sugar?
The question is how to replace.
To replace sugar when you're really addicted.
That's the hard part, right? Because that's the mental part of this. And then there's going to be the physical craving, right? These foods have been designed around craveability, right? We eat one and it's like, sometimes we go back to the romanticizing of some of these things. How do we do it?
Is there anything besides willpower?
Well, when I got sober, Marty Ginsburg, and I love Marty more than anything. Marty was my sponsor. Marty had 5 years of sobriety, and I had never met somebody as upbeat as Marty. This guy, you couldn't knock him down. He was just always in a good, pleasant mood. And he one day said to me, he goes, do you want... the fruit will give you some sugar, and you will need to white knuckle it for the first couple of weeks of this. And after 2 to 4 weeks, the blood sugar stuff stabilizes, the insulin stabilizes, and then your metabolism starts to shift. But it's a long process, and if you think that this process is something that you're going to go home and eat, some grilled chicken and some broccoli, go jump on a scale, and well, this crap don't work for me. It's not. It can't happen like that. It's all of these years it's taken us to get here. It's going to take a significant amount of time. But the only way that we're going to do this is if we change our culture and our lifestyle as it relates to food. That's it. Any other questions?
Well, once you start eating whole foods or non-processed foods, you lose the craving because the foods satisfy you, and then you don't have that excess craving.
Correct.
Because your body is satisfied and says, I don't need anything else.
Right. So what happens when we eat high-fat food, high-fat and protein and reasonable carbs, like again, not donut carbs, is as this stuff gets into our body, the nutrients all break down, and saturated fat, when it goes into the cell to create energy, it goes through the cell through beta oxidation, it goes into your mitochondria, and ATP starts to be churned out. There's a couple other processes in there as well. That produces satiety. As that process happens under normal homeostasis, which is where y'all are right now, that saturated fat or the fats get in there, the fatty acids, they get cleaved off and they get burned, and this whole system is working harmoniously. And the ROS signals to the cell, hey, we got plenty of power going on in here, shut down, we don't need anything in there, there's no glucose anywhere, and you're just burning fat. And if the ROS signal says to the cell to shut down, what happens to the brain? The brain knows it's full. And that's it. So that high fat, the olive oil, the cooking with butters, the tallow, the lard, whatever, will keep you satiated longer. So like I haven't eaten since like 6:30 last night, 7 o'clock last night, and I won't eat now for probably another couple of hours. I'm not hungry, I'm not jittery, clearly I don't have an energy crash because I can do this stuff all day. And then I'll eat, but I'll eat a reasonable food. And that's how my day will go. Now is this, yeah.
Look at Chris. Look at him. He eats like a horse. When he eats like a horse.
Mm.
He eats a lot of fat with his food that makes food taste really good. Look at him.
I'm not shy about eating. I can eat. I can throw down an awful lot of food.
So
I eat till I'm
animal
full.
fat does not make us fat.
Right. Well, animal fat can't because it's insulin resistant. So, but animal fat feeds your brain. Your brain is fed by fat. Is the number one ingredient. That's why little baby Everett will go back to him having that milk from its mama. That fat is growing that kid's brain. It's the energy, and then the protein is growing all these, and he's just getting longer, wider, fatter, smiles more, eyes wide open, his fingers are moving. All that energy from the fat is helping all the proteins grow him out. So yes, I don't weigh food. I would never. I don't have the ability or the patience to weigh out a piece of chicken. I eat until I'm full, and then I stop eating. I can't. If you've ever overeaten broccoli, raise your hand. I mean, like you can't. Like your body will just tell you it's enough. It will send a sensory satiety signal to your brain, and that sensor satiety signal is the exact signal that the food manufacturers have engineered out of the food. That's it. It's as simple as that. Real food will give you true, honest signals to how your body's supposed to work, and the refined stuff, it's backfiring and tricking everything.
And when we're talking broccoli, you can put full fat cheese all over it, butter in it, and it tastes really good.
I'm not a broccoli fan, and I don't like cauliflower. Just I don't know why. Like the look. I mean, I can eat it, but just looking at it, I don't even want to eat it once I look at it. But I mean, I do, but I regret it, and I eat it under protest. So, but I'm not a vegetable eater by trade. I do because I know that I need them. I'm also not a weightlifter. You guys see me here owning a CrossFit gym. I don't like lifting weights. I do it because it's good for my body. But I don't come in here trying to lift heavy or break any records. I can care less. I care that I'm strong enough to carry my body and do what it is that I got to do. So, if that's it, you guys, this has been enjoyable for me. Hopefully you guys got something out of this. If you have any questions, grab me after, but thank you very much.